All right, so we have gone through the calibration phase. You've found the type of home that you have loved. Maybe you have written an offer to, you've gotten said no to, but you are ready to get serious about writing those offers. The most important thing that I always instill to my first-time home buyers, and this is the very same conversation I have with my home sellers, is the fact that the best offer isn't always the highest priced offer. And what I mean by that is when sellers are evaluating an offer, they're looking at the contract price, so the price that you're offering, multiplied by the risk factor, the risk that's associated with that. So let's imagine that we're looking at a home that's $400,000, right? And you're coming in and you are offering $420,000, but you're coming with an FHA loan with only 3.5% down. You have full inspections. Maybe there's some other things that you want taken care of, and you're seen as again a little bit higher risk because there's a lot of things that could fall through with that because you're coming with weaker financing, because you're coming in with inspections. Now, if somebody else is coming in and they're coming in right at 400,000 or 410, but they're a cash offer and they're a done deal, and they show proof of funds, and they're going to close within 14 days. That second offer, that cash offer, seems a lot more interesting to that home seller. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to go with that, but again, that risk profile is very important when we're evaluating that. So one of my jobs when I'm helping my home buyers craft their offer is to do so in a way that obviously mitigates risk for themselves, but also looks attractive to that seller. Right? There's a couple different levers that we're going to look at when we do that. Obviously, the most important one is going to be price. Price is going to be the big piece that's probably going to take up 80% of the value of that offer. And obviously, one of the things I always recommend to my home buyers is we're going to always have comps, comparable analysis. Because what have other homes sold in that area? And that can give us evidence to say, hey, maybe this home is actually listed really low compared to the comparables or market value, and we should be coming in a little bit more aggressive, or vice versa. Hey, maybe this home is overpriced based on the features, and the listing agent didn't do a great job as far as pricing out this home. So again, we want to use evidence when we're creating that price. The other thing that I like to do too is I use a strategy or a mechanism called escalation clauses. An escalation clause sounds a little bit scary because it sounds like you're overpaying, but it's the exact opposite. It's a tool and a mechanism, an addendum that we write into a contract that basically says, hey, Mr. Home Seller, we will beat any single offer by a certain amount called the factor. So typically this is going to be somewhere between 0.5% and 1% of the total purchase price. So again, this $400,000 scenario, we might say, hey, Mr. Seller, we will beat the next best offer by 4,000, and we will go up all the way up to 420,000. Okay. So what that means is if somebody else offers $410,000, then hey, we're automatically going to escalate all the way up to 414. If that other home buyer ends up offering 418, we're going to be capped out at that 420. But if no one offers, if we're the only one there and no one else offers on that home, or maybe they offer below ask price, then we're going to be coming in right at that 400 number, and we're not going to escalate above that. So what that does is allows you to stay in the fight if things do get more competitive, but you don't end up kind of throwing caution to the wind when there are no other offers. Because again, we don't get to see them. We don't get to know how many other ones, unless if the seller tells us or gives us that information. So escalation clause is actually really, really helpful, where we're able to beat the next best offer by just a certain amount, and we're able to somewhat guarantee that up to a certain threshold. So I love that from a pricing standpoint when we're setting up our offers. The next piece there is going to be the financing that's going to come with that. Typically, we're somewhat tied to that. Typically, again, if you're not able to put 20% down, then we're just not able to put 20% down. But one thing I love to do is I love to get my loan officer to give a call to the listing agent, just to kind of give them that vote of confidence, just to show, hey, this is a local lender. This is somebody that has vetted this buyer, and we really feel strongly that we're going to make it to the finish line. And again, my lender has batted 1,000 for me, where we've never had fallen through with a contract because of financing reasons. And again, he really is able to put that vote of confidence forward for that home seller. The next big lever that we're going to be looking at is going to be the earnest money deposit, which is basically just going to be that good faith deposit. That's money that's going to come back to your settlement. It's not going anywhere, but it basically just shows that you're serious and shows that, hey, if you end up skipping town and you move out to California, you mean halfway through the contract, that's money that the seller gets to keep because of you skipped out on that contract. Usually, again, I recommend somewhere between 1% and 3% of the total purchase price for that. It doesn't make a huge deal, but it can obviously show that you have a decent amount of cash on hand and you're serious about this, and again, just shows that you are serious. The other big piece, which is probably the most important one, is going to be inspections. And this is something that both sellers are scared of. They're scared of inspections, and obviously the home buyers are scared of going without inspections. And most people think that it's a switch. It's either on or it's off. And that is not the case. Home inspections are a lot more like a dial where we can put in different protections for the buyer and obviously different incentives for that seller. So one of the things I love to do is most sellers are agreeable. If there's a major defect, the HVAC system just isn't kicking on, or there's a big hole in the roof, they're like, okay, yeah, we got to get this fixed. But what they don't want to do is they don't want to be raked over the coals by 1,000 little paper cuts, small little things. There's a crack in the concrete, it's a tripping hazard, it's a major defect. They don't want to fix those things, right? So typically what I'll write into my inspections is, hey, Mr. Seller, we're not going to ask for any repairs for above a threshold, or below a threshold of $500. Okay, so again, if that major defect that the HVAC system isn't kicking on, and that's going to be a $3,000 repair, yes, we want that taken care of. But again, a GFCI in the kitchen, isn't operating appropriately, needs to be swapped out, and that's going to cost an electrician $50 to do. We're not going to ask about that. We're not going to worry about the small things. Right? That is one kind of strategy that we can do. And again, there's lots of different ways to slice and dice it. One thing too is you might see a home that's really, really buttoned up and looks really taken care of, but maybe the roof is 25 years old. So what we might do is we might say, hey, we're only going to do an inspection for informational purposes only for the rest of the house. We're not going to ask for any repairs for anything else, but we do want to reserve a right to ask for repairs for the roof. So again, we're only identifying one single system as we're going through that. So again, those are many different ways that we can slice and dice that. So we've talked about price. We have talked about your financing. We've talked about the EMD. We've talked about inspections. The other piece there is going to be the date of closing. So typically, if you're coming with a conventional loan, you're going to be looking at somewhere between a 28, maybe a 30-day settlement, depending if there's any holidays mixed in there. And then obviously, if you're coming in with an FHA loan, it might be a little bit longer, it might be a little bit closer to a 45-day period. Almost always, whenever I'm writing an offer, I give a call to that listing agent and say, hey, Mr. Listing Agent, what does that seller want to see in an offer? Do they want to see a specific date because they're moving? Are their kids graduating, so they want to wait until their kids are done with their graduation ceremony to move out? Are they looking for something in particular? And typically they'll say, no, we want to close as quickly as possible, or hey, we really want to close on this specific date, and we need you guys to be flexible for that. So that's another kind of piece is again, I want to make sure that I'm crafting this not just as a good, strong offer, but as an offer that is crafted to that specific seller, to the needs that they have as much as we can. Okay? So again, make sure you're working with an agent that is not only going to be helping you mitigate risks and obviously make sure that you're staying safe, but also going to be one that does that while also making it attractive to that seller so we get said yes to that really amazing home that you're in love with, and that we're not just left with the bargain bin homes because that offer just isn't strong or isn't crafted in a good way.